So this is home math. And again, you just take a big look at him. 460,000 subscribers. You can see that down here. Guy has clearly been doing well for himself. And I think he's only been start doing this for like a year or two. I could be wrong on that, but at least that's what I've seen or noticed from him for about like last year or two. And he had one that went crazy viral on X a while ago, hit like 20 million views. And I think that probably essentially launched his career. But this one has 618,000 views, and it says, "What happened to marriage?" So this is going to be his breakdown. And again, coming from a very pragmatic stance. But it's a creator who I want to spotlight because I think, even if you're not giving the correct or the most Christian perspectives with things, I think there's still value in understanding what there is that you could do pragmatically with basic steps in order to improve your situation, in order to improve your ability to get on a date, your ability to just even talk to women. I think there is value in some of this like lower tier stuff that has less to do with marriage, but is more so about just basic social interactions between the genders. Let's go ahead and start this, man.
I have a question for the men. Do you guys still want to get married?
I think what you're asking is, do you want to be married? And I think that a lot of men would say, yes, I do want a partner to spend my life with. But when you say, do you want to get married? I'm not sure if you're keeping in mind all these extra steps that come before and the possible ones after. Here's a guy living in a cardboard box with his ex-wife in his house with other men. You have to keep in mind that happens with roughly 1/3 of new marriages, and that's only for the men who have the opportunity to get married, which is contingent upon a bunch of steps that.
I mean, just look at this. Like, it's all scribble work, but it's done so well. Like I could, as much as I might scribble anything similar to this, the way it looks is like it's got an artistic kind of styling to it. I just love it. It just looks really, really good.
Have changed quite a bit over the years. So, in order to get married, you have to date, and in order to date, you have to work and make money, and in order to work and make money, you have to go to school. And men have been facing a lot of new difficulties in all of these areas over the last few decades. So, do I want to have a partner? Yes. But do I want to go through all of this again? Not right now. So you want to get married, you have to date, you want to date, you have to work, you want to work, you have
Fair
to go
enough.
to school. This is where a lot of male problems begin. I'm not saying that schoolgirls have it easy, but the last few decades, schoolboys have been treated like they are defective. In third.
And that's true. I mean, most people don't even understand. Like, it's not even just like, because people want to limit it to like the recess and playtime and all that. I mean, it's even like the content of what boys are given in school as learning materials and working materials. You think about it when you're on the third grade, second grade, even, they go to like, okay, and now we're going to be reading House on the Prairie. And now we're going to be reading, insert, whatever kind of neutral, bland book that's got a lot of words in it. And it's basic learning material. It's never, none of that is schemed to pique the interests of boys or young men. If they wanted to, get that closer to the realm of young men and what they're more receptive to, it would be like engineering, aviation, flight. It'd be like how to make things. It'd be a lot more. There'd be more pictures, obviously, but that's what boys are more receptive to at this age. And so it's less even about the fact that it's like, well, boys can't be rough at recess and it's feminized. I mean, yeah, the feminization's a problem, but even on the intellect and what the male intellect is more receptive to, that's not in the light of physicality, but in the light of, just general passions and interests and hobbies. Nothing in the school system is really leveraging itself to work in men's favor. It's all in female favor. And a lot of this is also exemplified by the fact of like the simple rules of like sit still. You need to all be in these rows. You need to have, and all of that is antithetical to how boys would operate normally. They have to they essentially are exactly what he said, treated like they are defective girls. And that's why generally girls have an easier time in the younger stages of school.
Grade, I used to finish my work before the other kids, and I would get up and move around, and they told me that was not okay, so they medicated me. When I got a little older, the other boys would start fights, and I went to the authorities to do the right thing, and they punished both of us. So then I took matters into my own hands, and they punished just me because of these policies. They don't.
And again, like he's just going to keep railing at all of these things that are just like he's probably going to say it better than I do. But again, it just those two quick examples, everyone I think can just be like, I relate. I easily relate and suck saying school was literally torture for me. School wasn't fun for me, man, either. I didn't really start even having halfway decent experiences in school until I was like, a junior in high school. And by that point it was because I was like, I can drive my own car. I know I can just leave. I can do other things. Like I didn't feel as trapped into that environment as I was.
Don't let boys just fight it out anymore. Those types of policies are not setting young boys up for success. They punish the way that we natively look at the world. It definitely messed me up a little, and that was 30 years ago, and I have no idea what's going on now. When we get older and go to college, there are all kinds of things in place to help girls.
It has to be so much worse now, you would think. But at the same time, I also think maybe for boys it's not so bad because how many schools do you see where the teachers just like aren't giving a single crap of what's going on? Where the boys are fighting each other again, but they're probably still all addicted to Ritalin because that's how Big Pharma works, right? Oh, you're having trouble learning? Well, instead of looking at anything possibly that could be wrong with your behavioral analysis or maybe possibly what you're doing, here's drugs. America, dude. America.
That are not available for boys, and they say that it's there to correct problems, but I don't think those problems exist anymore. So as we are accumulating what we need to succeed in life, boys are getting less of a head start than they used to, which is, I think, one of the contributing reasons for why they say they have Peter Pan syndrome and they never grow up. I think it starts here. When we get into the workplace,
And Peter Pan syndrome is honestly a real thing. I've seen it with guys who I've been close to as well, and it's sad and it's depressing. But I think that logic fits where if the entire if you remove someone's childhood from them, they will probably try to spend every ounce of their life afterwards, once they're given the reins, to seek out what they were never allowed to have, which then leads into the Peter Pan syndrome, which leads into men wanting to only play video games nonstop, which leads into men who never want to settle down, who don't want to have kids, who don't see the value in these things. It makes a lot of logical sense to think that it starts there because it's a voiding of childhood and forcing you to be and act in all these ways that you don't want to be. So it's even a negative thing. It's not even just like do this instead. It's do these things that you hate doing. And so then you probably, whether you're conscious of it or not, even if it's subconscious, working in an effort to get those things that you weren't allowed to have.
there are similar programs that benefit women and not men. And that's an issue because women want to make equal money to men, but then they also want men to make more and support them, and you can't have both. Additionally, the culture has become very inhospitable towards men, and again, the way that men communicate and behave. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the economy is getting pretty bad, and even though that affects everybody, men are the ones who are expected to pay. So this puts.
And that's even an insane thing too. It's because as bad as inflation's getting, it's one thing I've also not thought about too. But it is a 1.5 times multiplier difficulty for men. For women, it's like there's no multiplier, and it's exactly for the reason that he's saying. It's like the more that inflation goes up, the more the burden's on men to be the primary provider, the sole, the maker of more money in the home. But then if you have real wages aren't going up and in all of these actual kind of reasonable professions that can't break those thresholds anymore because of inflation. Well, now then you get into situations now where it's like women don't want to date plumbers, they don't want to date electricians, they don't want to date that because those are seen as like low tier low tier status jobs, and it's just. I mean, now they're paying a bit more because the market's catching up, but there's still some of those in that range of the blue collar workforce where it's a very respectable position and you should be glad that someone's doing it. But if inflation keeps going and those wages don't follow, well, then you end up in a situation where you're working a good job for a good reason, doing a good thing for community, but you're not incentivized at any point to do it because if your incentive to create a family has to be to leave that position, it's a terrible, terrible incentive. And it forces people to do crazy things like being engineers or being viral TikTokers. And you're seeing that right now. And especially with the mass unparticipation happening across the board, whether it's workforce for men, whether it's dating for men, whether it's college for men, men at large are just not participating anymore. And it's because they just cannot find a point in continuing doing it. which is unfortunate because then what it leads to happening is then that top percentage of men who did have it, who had less of a hard time, then begin to dominate a bit more bigger piece of the pie because all the less capable or the less competent or the less favorable men just vacate the premises. And then all that's left are the top dogs. And then you build in these positions again where men are like, well, what's all these guys? And it's like, no, it's the same guys. But I'll continue.
Puts us at an increasing disadvantage comparative to women as we age. Then when we get out into the dating world, if you don't have any money, that's going to be a problem. If you can't compete on the dating apps, which most men cannot, that's going to be a problem. If you're not okay with her having an OnlyFans or an Instagram or whatever, it's going to take some women off the table because they have so much attention. So a lot of men are playing catch up at this point in life when that didn't used to be the case. So our parents and grandparents did not have any of these problems. They just sort of grew up, got jobs, and married whoever was nearby. Have you ever thought of it like, would your mother have married your father if she had Tinder? Would she have chosen him? There's stuff going on in these phases of life for us that would have been unheard of even one generation ago. I once had a job where I worked with a girl. We had the same job. I had more experience. We had layoffs, and later she matched with me on Bumble and came to hook up. And I said, would you like to continue doing this? And she told me that I didn't have my life together enough. We were living in the same place, in the same job market, and we came from the same job, and I had more experience. And she was getting $120K a year to do some like women's leadership job.
It's never enough, dude. I mean, obviously it's anecdotal, but what is a lot of anecdotal evidence together? That is data. I mean, and it's just women operate this way, dude. It's just like, this is how they operate. It doesn't matter the actual number. They don't have an understanding of it. I know it sucks to say this because it's like, even growing up, I thought I had a much greater opinion of women than I do now, but again, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's like, it's not women that are doing this, it's the fact that they've been conditioned to be like this, but also that the conditioning is playing on their biological vulnerabilities, which again, one of them being hypergamy, which is the fact that she must date up. She is, Salk is saying social media has destroyed women's expectations. You're 100% correct. It's not even expectations. It's that they have this baseline of, my man needs to be doing better than me, otherwise why am I with him? And some women are a bit more aware of that like consciously, and some it's just sign of subconsciously. They can't really understand it. He just gave me the ick. They can't really put it in the best terms or words. And it doesn't matter. He's talking about how they had the same job. They made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she still was like, you don't have your life together enough. Can you imagine telling somebody who makes $70K a year and is settled and set and they own their own business and like, I can't get any better for me. And she's like, your life, you don't have it together enough. You're not making enough. Now, again, a lot of this too comes from the fact, again, that they are being conditioned against their biological vulnerabilities, which is the fact that they probably get pushed. Girl, if your man's not making 200K, he ain't shit. You leave him. And, you times that by 100 and you make it, you obviously make it less, less corny than what I did, and make it more like, and if he's not making 200K, is he really a man? And and you do different things like that. There's different ways to address it, but it's happening all over. It's pressure from everywhere, but it's all chiding the same points. Then they do view that as like, wow, he's not making enough money, combined with the fact that they feel innately that they must be with someone who is of greater status than them. That is the attractive factor for most women. Is that he is the superior being. He is the smart. He is the leader. He is the strong one. He is the provider. And so they go hand in hand, but with the conditioning that goes socially.
Job or something, and I was driving for Uber. So, I think a lot of people are really underestimating how much easier this makes things. So then if you can actually get to this point, you as a man, you have to take everything that you've managed to put together over the course of your life and put it all on the table for someone who is probably not doing the same. Even though women are not having a hard time in the workplace, men are still generally expected to provide, while women generally keep more of their money for themselves. We've all heard, my money is my money, his money is my money. I found this great little video about that.
But I
So
just have a
miserable.
quick question. My husband won't see all of my accounts, right? I have like 8 different bank accounts, but my husband only knows about 2 of them. I've just been secretly saving for years in case I ever need to. Oh, no, say no more. I don't need to see those statements, so as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist.
Yeah, so I don't love the idea that my wife might
I just like, but why even get married? You know? But again, marriage is treated like luxury dating. Especially it's how celebrities treat it. Celebrities be getting married like 20 times. Dude, Taylor Swift has been married like, well, maybe she's not been married. But there's other celebrities that are like, they get married every like 2 years, every 1.5 years. It's just luxury dating to them, dude. All they can really do with it is like, this is my next status. I think honestly to them, it's like, it's social media clout. It's like, maybe we can merge our audiences together and make more of this. And then they gauge like, well, is our careers growing? And if they don't, they probably separate. I imagine most of them aren't even real. They're just done in an attempt to be performative to maybe like merge their audiences. Because again, the end thing is like, it's money, dude. These people just really care about money in the end goal, especially how it's exemplified here. She's going behind her back to keep further access for her money. She's already not participating in her own marriage. So why even be a part of it? I don't understand.
be hiding money. Of course, I'm not allowed to do that. All of my money has to be on the table, and there's about a 1/3 chance that you're going to be taking it to party with other dudes in the house that I bought for you. Divorce laws have changed too. You used to need a really good reason to get divorced, but now it can happen just because someone is not happy. They even write songs about it. Check this out. I have to mute it for copyright. I'll read it to you. Might be the only guy who didn't send me hearted eyes in reply to my latest story. We work well on paper, we don't argue, we don't fight, but lighting scented candles just won't relight up our fire. And right there she goes, ah, it ain't that bad, it's just not what I wanted, don't want to live this life half-hearted. Hang on, here it comes. I want fireworks and flames, don't want safe, tame, practical. That ain't enough, that ain't love.
Oh, come on, these ads, bro. But like, yeah, dude, it'll never be enough. And Sock, you're saying you married up, so if she flips her ass and leaves, I get half of her stuff. Hey, good for you, brother. Good for you, man. You might need to start doing less chores. Start playing around. No, Joe, that's not good advice. Do not test your marriage, dude. And I hope for the best that you guys stay together and you work out well. But no fault divorce is a huge problem. You're 100% right. And I think that none of this will change unless you get rid of it. You have to get rid of it. I mean, that's the first step. I mean, you do that first, and then you can go after family courts. And I think there is a good enough sentiment that we can possibly see some states, and probably not all, but some states that are a bit more right and conservative leaning doing that in the future. And at least I hope that we can get to. You're saying there's no incentive to try. Are you saying there's no incentive to try to push for no fault divorce, or no incentive to try to test your wife? I think there is incentive to push for no fault divorce for a lot of the reasons. One is like you get rid of no fault divorce. That means you're going to have just entirely less bloat on the family court system, period. But another big incentive is because we're seeing what the effects and the consequences of it in culture right now is. We are living in the result of having no fault divorce, which is everyone for themselves, except it's not everyone for themselves. It's all women for themselves at the cost of all these men. And we're just witnessing broken home after broken home after broken home. I mean, and again, I just point to someone's story like Jeff Younger, right? Like his whole life has been flipped on its head because of what's been allowed to happen to him by rulings of different judges, allowing different pieces of his life to be taken. And now he's not even allowed to testify in defense of his son because she's trying to castrate his son in California. I think there's plenty of incentives for it. Now there might not be. Now what you might be talking about is there's no incentives to try to test your wife. Don't do that. I don't think that's good advice. But I think for people who can recognize the problem, there is an incentive. And I think for people who can't recognize the problem, there is no incentive. And try and fix your marriage with no fault divorce. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, that is true, right? And I guess I approach it from two different angles, right? I think if no fault divorce is in place and then you get married, it's an entirely different story. versus marriages, people who went into marriages knowing they had that and they're that ace in their sleeve that they could get divorced. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't think marriage even is what marriage is supposed to be right now, currently. Even among Christian people, there's a lot of Christian men that can't even get their wives to submit. So I think that you're right in the fact that people don't see the incentive. They can only see the, what would happen to me if I ended up in a bad situation, and and it's a reality. It is. It truly is. But I think those who at least in the macro can see the externalities of no fault divorce would be like, we at least need to move to a position to where we're getting rid of it, at least in some states. But again, my other angle with that too is like, I think if you're married and you got married with the covenant and under God, then I think then you have every incentive to try to fix your marriage, not because of no fault divorce, because you can't escape, but because you made these vows before God. You made a promise to your partner and to God. Now, I mean, a lot of marriages maybe don't even do the vows like that typically, and they're not done in the light of Christianity. It's like, how much can you respect those? But I think that there's another angle too, where it's like, I think it's imperative and good to work and to communicate with your partner to fix these things. And I think overall in the macro, the bigger point is you move away from no fault divorce. I think you start to see more positive externalities, and you would maybe get into positions where then people who wouldn't have been married 3 or 4 times didn't get married at all because they were unwilling to take that risk of not being able to leave that partnership. Let me finish this. There's ads in the way.
Copilot in the Microsoft ad.
This is the squircle of unconsciousness. It represents how.
But I do want to say, I think that's a good point to make, that there is a lot of people who are default liberals and normies wouldn't see a reason to fix marriage, wouldn't see a reason to have no fault divorce, because if their mindset, all they're seeing is what he's presenting, which is all these issues of men. You're putting a man in a position to be like, I'm going to get rid of what possibly maybe my only out of an insane situation. But again, I think the bigger point is you move to this to get the positive externalities because you're trying to change culture.
People don't know how relationships work, and so they think the relationship is going to go like this, and then it turns a corner. I think she's at the dissatisfied part. You can't have everything is exciting all the time. Good choices are boring. No relationships are going to be fun the whole time. They're all going to have spots where there's no fire. But she don't want safe, tame, practical. That ain't enough. That's not even love. Look how passionate she is about dumping her husband. That's real, I can spot a faker. And she even sings about other men giving her googly eyes on her Instagram stories. So this girl is what I would call an excitement chaser. She starts out her new relationships excited, and over time gets bored when they're not chaotic, and then by the time...
And doesn't that speak to what I just said, which is like, it's luxury dating, dude. You didn't plan to even get married to this guy. Your fault against him, and say it's not a skit and say it's real. It's because other guys were giving you hard eyes on your Instagram page when your husband wasn't. It's like, man, the bar has fallen. There is no bar, dude. There just is no bar, dude. That's just so sad and pathetic. And it's like, but that's what you get when people are Taylor Swift fans.
Time we notice she's bored, she's already got a new guy lined up, and this has pretty nasty effects on us. So your relationship satisfaction is going to change over time, but your stability is not supposed to. That's what marriage is. That's what it's for. Even when you start feeling like things are not as fun, you have to remember that commitments are what gets you through the swings. I actually have a little theory that this takes about a year. Obviously, we get up and go to sleep with the sun, and women have changes in their hormones and emotions with the moon, and I think that a year is the amount of time that it takes to find somebody and have that strong emotional connection, get pregnant, and have a child. It's about 1 year altogether. And this girl is making a spiritual experience out of a biological process, and she's allowed to end the marriage over it. So it's not that I don't want a partner.
It's just like, dude, again, shout out to Homouth, dude. The pragmatic nature of just being so technically when you're breaking it down, it's so good, dude. It's so good. And like, how do girls even get mad at stuff like this, right? Like, he's making it really hard. He's not using any kind of like flamey rhetoric. Man, dude, chef's kiss, man.
It's just that a lot of us don't have what we need to build a partnership, and even if we get it, it could fall apart immediately. She could squircle herself into believing it's not love and have a phone in her pocket with 1,400 horny guys on it, and then I end up here. So, what you've done by fighting for equality is you've basically said, hey, you want to play a game of chess? I get all queens, though. Hey, where are you going?
Do you guys still want to get married? Like, is that still a thing?
I hope this all made it clear why it's less of a thing.
So good, dude. That's so good. And I mean, and I want to point this out too, to be like, send this video out. Find that video from Homath, and I'll put the link in the description actually. Give a like to this guy too. Go ahead and put this in chat right now. Like, it's deserved, dude. Like, this guy's balling out. I think, like, dude, just send it to people who aren't understanding. I mean, I think if anything, his videos are the best ones to kind of help describe the broken nature of what's happening between the genders. Especially he does it so pragmatically. He doesn't come from like a Christian standpoint. He just explains it like, this is what's happening. This is what's real. This is why people are not doing this. Like, he's not using the crazy rhetoric or anything like that. And there was a couple other things I wanted to get into too, but I'm going to probably save those for the next episode if I even get to them. Those are the big ones I wanted to cover. But again, creator spotlight, that is ho_math. Ho_math. He's the same thing, I think, on X as well. But subscribe to him, follow him. He makes phenomenal videos. All of them are like that. I can't imagine how much time he spends, scribbling, but he's got the style down. He's got the process down. And so good on that, brother, for keep making content, especially because I view this to be content that is good, practical, just explainers of the current iteration we're in without any of the emotional screaming baggage that comes from the Fresh and Fit podcast, or when these people are like actually like at each other's throats, like what you see on the Whatever podcast and different things of that nature too. So with that, just one final announcement. Again, if you didn't catch at the beginning of the stream,